so much, Jess. So FaZe definitely has a long road ahead of them still. But to break down that match, we have a special guest. We got Octane on the desk for this one. Let's actually talk about what FaZe needs to do, though, today. We already talked about them having they have 2 matches today. That doesn't happen every single day for you in the Pro League as a team. How much more difficult do you think it's going to be for them?
Well, for the second map, maybe not as much, since obviously they're going to be warmed up now that they've played Splyce, but they got the big one out of the way, because Splyce for them is going to be a must-win. Like, if you lose to Envy, you got to either beat Splyce or United, and you're going to want to beat the team that has a sub.
You know, Octane, I think as a team, I'd probably rather be in the position that your team was in for that 2-day matchup. I feel like you had some easier teams. For FaZe, do you feel like this is something that they need to think about going into today?
I mean, if you have 2 really difficult days, it tends to stress on your team a little bit, or 2 matches rather. And, you know, our day, like you said, was a little bit easier than all of our other matches. So, you know, just being able to get that quick 2-0 is huge for us. And, you know, maybe a difficult day for FaZe could easily end up in an 0-2, but, you know, bringing in a win here against Splyce is massive for them.
Yeah, but this first one was really impressive, and really the hard points in general from Splyce. They came out very strong inside of hardpoint chance.
Yeah, and Forest is kind of nutty for them as well. They just do a fantastic job at getting streaks. Like, we keep talking about Tommy and how good he is, even on this map yesterday, but just the intelligence to, juggling the hill on that open street hill. And then they use all of their streaks over on, like, the dome side of things, that giant long line of sight. Use fighter pilots, you can kill everyone. So incredibly effective job at getting the streaks, using them almost perfectly, and they won 3 out of 4 hills. And again, Road, they take the L on it by 20-some-odd points, but it's barely anything, and that's where they're earning their streaks. So close game until that happens, but then, yeah, they just blow it out of the water.
Crazy to see that on Cave as well. 97 seconds, I believe it was, on Cave, a very contest-heavy hill. So we do see Splyce's dominance somewhat in that map, but the story starts to change a little bit when we get into the second map for that SND. And Chance, to go back to you for a second here, we were looking at a few stats, and we actually saw this is a map that FaZe has done very well on historically.
Yeah, I think it was Dallas. They were undefeated 6-0, and I think going into New Orleans, they only played it 3 times, but still posted a 2-1 record. And of course, when you see something like that, it does look poorly, and it makes it seem like Splyce didn't do a good job in the pick and bans. But I think Splyce, we found out yesterday on Texas, like, if they're missing Jerd, and Jerd is a huge role player for them on the sniper, it's just a pick your poison type deal. Like, if they're uncomfortable on a map, they're going to have to try something new. And to their credit, I don't think they played terribly. They found themselves in like 3 or 4 separate clutch situations, like 1v1s, and they just never went their way.
Yeah, now, Octane, just to talk more to that whole Splyce situation, too, with them having the sub, what exactly is that scenario like, and what are you expecting out of this team until they do have Jerd here?
Coming from like a game mode by game mode, at least when we played the sub at ESWC last year, hardpoint is way easier, which was evident in the series because they won both of them. The S&D is really where it comes into play, because, you know, sticking someone into that, you know, the setups that you've practiced for months and months, and then just, you know, having to completely switch everything up or try to just fit that one person in is really difficult. So I'm not surprised they won the 2 hardpoints by as much as they did. I am surprised by that. The Texas thing that you brought up, or Chance brought up rather, not having Jerd on that sniper is huge, but another thing is playing into London Docks, which is FaZe's best S&D map by a wide margin. Didn't really work out too well.
Yeah, definitely. And just to really stress it, when you were at ESWC, you were playing with Pander, and that's also someone that you've played with a whole lot. So there is obviously not chemistry for the whole team, but for you two at least in the past, having played quite a bit.
Not quite European in North America.
Yeah, hashtag Pantane. You know, the big thing is when you look at this, I actually got to talk to Fellow, and he was saying he loved how much respect he was actually getting from the team. They were able to work well together, but there were moments like when they got to the Gibraltar in their previous series, not in the series that we just saw, that they were like, oh, we got to go over really quick call-outs. Like little things like that that you don't even think of. So there is a lot of stress on that team right now, and we kind of have to do justice to both teams, because FaZe played very well, and Splyce is up quite a lot, and we'll see that when we actually jump into the CTF here. And in the CTF, was there anything that caught your eye, Chance?
It was everything that really FaZe could do right, they did do right. I mean, they beat them, what, like 5-1? Incredibly convincing, and that's back to the FaZe that we've seen all the way back to Dallas, where they were undefeated. And it was just, it's one thing to win your gunfights, it's another thing to come up with all the clutch plays, and just literally time and time again, FaZe, they just do everything right. Down to like the routes that they're taking, even with the flag, it's just flawless. And even just to take it even a farther step, it feels like they die at the right times. Like, they had a situation where they have 4 men all pushed up into the fire in the base. The only player to die is Replays, but Tommy got behind enemy lines and he's hanging out in barrels. Well, Tommy gets 1 kill, and now they're freaking out. They're like, well, we have to push with the flag towards him because Splyce is spawning up. But then because Replays dies, he actually spawns behind barrels and just shoots Tommy in the back. So, like, when they're dying in correct spots, like, things are just like everything's going well.
So, Octane, what have you thought so far in World War II of FaZe Clan on CTF?
I mean, Dallas, they're the best CTF team in the world, and it seems when they're not winning their capture the flags, that's when the issues start to settle in. But if they keep performing like that, things are going to go pretty well for them this week.
Yeah, it's a crazy swing mode as well.
Yeah,
and
no, Game 3 is huge in any series.
It's so big, and I think when you talk about it starting to go wrong a little bit, that was that dip in performance. When we actually talked about both of these teams in this matchup, they're 2 teams that you have a lot of faith in as someone who watches Call of Duty as an esport, but they were both coming off of probably their slowest tournaments. And now, all of a sudden, we're really putting them to the test here in the LAN League. Division B is not an easy division to be in, but let's keep taking a look at the last series that did go down and look at the next map. This one, I mean, Chance, break it down for us.
This is the first time they've won it, right? Like, the first time they played, it looked a little bit rough. This is where Felony again went like 11-27. Next time around, they played Unilad, and they lost by all of 3 points. But again, Felony was like a little bit behind, but seemed to fill in the role quite a bit better. By the end of this one, I think Vance had earned streaks, Mad Cat got streaks at 1 point, and then Felony even closes it out with streaks. So streaks on Sainte Marie Demont, they're going to be incredibly important. And something that Tommy actually talked about in the interview, they actually had a really good chance, FaZe did, because here in streaks at the 2nd hill and trying to rotate to hill number 3, burns the fighter pilot, burns the glide bomb, and they don't really get anything out of it. And there's a situation where they use the fighter pilot, get 2 kills, all of FaZe is pushed up on the barn side of things. So they know Splyce is spawning out back ammo, and they got to run through radio tower. If Tommy just puts the artillery down on the cut from there, then the artillery could be huge, because instead the glide bomb, it got him all of 1 kill, and then it's just a battle. But if he just cuts off the 1 lane that he knows Splyce is going to have to push past, I think that 2nd hill, or the 3rd hill, excuse me, could have massively gone in FaZe's way. But because it didn't, they found themselves down by like 80 points and then never really had the opportunity to catch back up.
I think that's a pretty clearly what the story was in that one, but all that pushes us all the way to a Game 5, and we get into the S&D, and we were actually watching it with quite a few people. We had Ben over there losing his absolute mind, freaking out. But Sam, in that S&D, what were the key moments for you?
I think it's just, it wasn't necessarily key moments. It was more, I think it's just Splyce trying to run around the map and make the best of a worse situation. Like I said earlier, it's just FaZe. They know how to play the map. They played it a bunch of times. You know, granted the new spawns might have messed things up a little bit, but they just made the clutch plays, really. The thing about this whole entire series is going back to the fill, fitting someone into a respawn. You know how to play it fundamentally. There's not really things that you can, you know, do crazy in a hard point to try to win a game. I think that's why Splyce was able to take these 2 maps to begin with in the first place. But, you know, FaZe won CTF and 2 S&Ds to win Game 5. So, I mean, the series kind of went not how I predicted it. I didn't think it would go Game 5, but the maps that they did win, it's not too crazy.
Yeah, and to the point of Fellow trying to like fill in a role, like they had a couple rounds where like you see where Felony, he's watching the up top, he got quite a few kills from that position. So when Splyce was able to get control of the B side, they did it perfectly. They're even using the Tabin gas or whatever it's called to get control of the B side. But they also had a couple rounds where Felony's pushing up by himself mid-map trying to flank, and then he just gets killed and there's literally no one around him from Splyce to trade. So a couple situations where it's just he's the odd man out, and if you don't get the first blood or at the very least get traded, your teams find themselves in a bad spot. And I think that was actually the difference maker. I think it was literally 6 first bloods went to FaZe and 4 went to Splyce.
Now, just can't stress how important this series is really going to be for the overall standings. FaZe going to be able to take the series.